everyone, I'm Shanae. Today we're going to be looking at some basic braiding techniques, just in preparation not only for future videos where we're going to get into some more complicated tutorials, but also because these are such great techniques to use for everyday life. And some of them are a little bit complicated if you've never tried them before, so we're going to go over them before we get into anything more complicated. Because a lot of future videos are going to use these techniques anyway, and like I said, they're so good to use for every day. I use braids at least once a week in my life because I have really long hair and I have a job that I can't have my hair down ever. So I get sick of ponytails. So we are going to start off with just a basic braid because that's the one you need to know before we start getting into anything more complicated. So you can do a basic braid anywhere on your head. But for this video, I'm just going to do it off to the side here in a nice ponytail so that it's easier for you guys to watch what I'm doing. So let's just do that quick. Okay, so we have the hair here. We are going to separate it into 3 sections. We want them to be equal distance apart or equal size. So we've got one section, it's a little too big. A little smaller here. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so those are about equal distance apart. It doesn't matter too much. The only thing you have to watch for here, if you have layers in your hair, you have to make sure that you are going to have an equal length at the end of this braid. We don't want to have like this section happens to have all the short layers in it and now it's this long. We want them all to be kind of the same. So you can see I kind of did that myself. I've got about 2 inches less length on this one. So I'm just going to pull some of my other layers in just to make it all about the same length. So that's a little bit better. You can see I still got some short pieces at the end here, but this long one is going to make up for that. So as long as we've got some hair that's all about the same length. So the first thing we're going to do with this braid is, the very basic idea is we're going to go from the outside to the inside. So we've got 3 sections here. The outside section on the right is going to move over, and now it will become the middle section. You want to kind of brush them out once in a while because they will get really tangled at the ends if you just braid the whole thing without trying to straighten it out at all. So we've got another outside section here. Now this has become the middle section. So now we've got this outside section and it's going to cross over to the middle section, and now it will become the middle section. Okay, so again, now on the other side, outside section goes across and becomes the middle section. Outside section on this side, going to come across and become the middle section. Outside section comes across, becomes the middle section. Outside section again, comes across, becomes the middle section. And as you can see, I've already got a nice braid starting here. Because I made sure that I had equal distance or equal sized chunks, this braid is looking pretty even. You might want to do this sometimes, but if you had grabbed, just a really skinny little piece for one of your sections, you would end up with one of these would be really skinny and your braid can end up being kind of lopsided. However, sometimes we want it to look like that, so that's fine. But in this case, we want it to be equal. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. This outside section again is gonna come across the middle. Opposite side outside section, across to the middle, across to the middle, and you just keep going all the way down as long as you want your braid to be. Now, when you come to doing this on the back of your head or somewhere that you can't see it, you have to really pay attention and make sure that you don't cross 2 sections from the same side twice. Like if I did the right side here and then I do the right side again, that's not going to work. That's just going to give you, well, a kind of cool looking little spiral, but it's not what we're looking for this time. So just make sure that you remember which side you've just pulled from so that you can keep going from the opposite side the whole way down. Now we could stop here, we could stop anywhere along this braid because sometimes it looks really nice when you have a really long tail. If you want to keep going all the way to the end, like I do today, you can just go all the way down to the end. And again, because we made sure that these were all about the same length, I've still got a nice even braid all the way down. If one of these sections had been too short, then this would have kind of ended up looking wonky at the bottom. And if that happens to you, you can just stop the braid wherever that starts to happen. It doesn't really matter if you notice, okay, it's starting to look a little wonky at the bottom here because I've got too thin of a piece. That's fine, just stop your braid there. And we can go pretty much all the way to the bottom if you wanted to. Usually I stop about here, put another ponytail in here, and then you've got your braid. Okay, so let's go over some of the hand movements now. The most basic thing you can do, I would definitely recommend putting your hair off to the side like this so that you can see what you're doing so you don't get confused, and just do it a whole bunch of times. The only way to get better at doing these is to practice them. So we are going to go get our three equal sections again like we did before. This is what I do. Of course, if you're practicing and you find a better way to do it, totally do what works best for you. So I've got my 3 sections again. I've got them between my thumbs like this. And we want to cross this section. You can start with either side. I just like to do this side. We're going to cross this section over to this one. I've got it between my thumbs right now, and I'm going to pass it over to my middle finger, okay? Because I'm still holding this section with my thumb. I'm going to pass it over to my middle finger because I still want them to be kept separate, but I want to hold them both in one hand. So now this one between my thumb, or my middle finger, has become the middle section, and I've still got my other section between my thumb, and this section is between my thumb as well. Okay, now we're going to turn this hand so that I can grab my thumb section, which is my outside section, with my middle finger of the other hand. So turn, grab with this hand, brush it out so it doesn't get tangled, and now I've got my middle section and my 2 outside sections between my thumbs. So basically your middle section is often going to end up in your middle finger here. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this hand, pass my outside section over to my middle finger again. Okay, brush it out, and now outside section, middle section, outside section. So I'm going to turn this hand now and pass this outside section over to this middle finger. Okay, and now we're back to where we started. Outside section, to finger, back to where we started. So we're always going to end up at the end of the movement with outside sections in your thumbs, inside section in your finger. Turn again, pass it to your other hand. Oh, there we go. Okay, and once you get good at this, you can do this really quickly, but we're going to go really slow because it's a little bit hard to see, I know, hard to see what the hands are doing. So we've got our outside, middle, outside, turn, pass this to the middle finger again. Okay, we've got our sections again. Pass this outside section to the opposite middle finger. Good. Outside section to the opposite finger. Good. Outside section to the opposite finger. And this way we can keep a nice tension on the braid too, if that's what you want. Sometimes we want a looser braid, but it's a lot easier if you can keep your tension on your braid, because then you don't end up with all these little flyaways and your hair can sometimes start to slip out if you're just starting. Okay, so we can do that again all the way down to the end. Just making sure that you brush out all the way to the ends once in a while because you won't get that tangle. Okay, and we can do that as long as we want, all the way down to the end. And like I said, just practice this a whole bunch of times in the mirror. It's the only way you get better at it. And now we're done. So now we've got a nice braid again. And like I said, we can do this anywhere. You can do this at the back of your head. If you want to do it on the side like this and toss it over the back, that works too. Just have to pull it a little bit to get it kind of moved over. And lots of times I like to loosen it up again a bit once it's, and obviously I would put a ponytail in the end, but I just didn't have one. But we want to loosen it up a little bit usually, just so that it looks a little bit looser, a little bit nicer, a little thicker. And that's our basic braid. So next we are going to look at a French braid. This one is a little bit more complicated, so I definitely recommend getting the basic braid down before you start moving on to doing a French braid. But it's very close to the same idea. It's just we're going to be going higher up on the head, gathering more hair, and I like the look of this one a little bit better.